Hey guys, it's Lexi, and in this video on the basics, we're going to be talking about how to calculate formal charge. Hey guys, so when you take organic chemistry and you're trying to calculate formal charge, a lot of the times you're going to be given a formula. In this video, I'm going to show you a much easier way to calculate formal charge, where you won't have to memorize a formula. Okay, so imagine you're neutral, and I'm going to give you a gift. And when you open up the box, inside there's a negative electron. I want you to think, what charge do you have now? If you started out neutral, but now you were given a negative electron, so you have an extra electron, you're going to have a -1 charge. So in order to understand formal charge the simple way, you want to make sure that you understand how to use the periodic table to help you. So really quickly, I'm just going to show you a couple things, and just bear with me and follow me here, okay? So I want you guys to look at these columns. So we have boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, right? They're each in their own column. Boron wants 3 electrons. Carbon wants 4 electrons. Nitrogen wants 5. Oxygen wants 6. Fluorine wants 7. Okay, sulfur again would want 6. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to show you guys how to use that info. Okay, so now let's go ahead and find some formal charges. We can go ahead and start with the oxygen. So this oxygen atom, first let's figure out how many electrons are around the oxygen right now. So remember that when you have a bond, the bond is going to have 2 electrons. So a double bond is going to have 4 electrons. And then we're going to kind of karate chop the bond in half so that we can see specifically what electrons are around the oxygen atom. So when we look at the oxygen, we'll see that it right now has 6 electrons. And then we're going to use the periodic table to figure out how many electrons oxygen wants to have. So we find oxygen on the periodic table, and we see that it wants to have 6 electrons. So the oxygen has 6 electrons right now, and it wants to have 6 electrons. That tells us that the formal charge of the oxygen is going to be neutral. Let's try another atom. Let's look at this sulfur atom down here. So the sulfur has this bond. So remember, we're going to show the 2 electrons in the bond, and then we're going to chop the bond in half. And now let's count how many electrons are specifically around the sulfur atom. It's got 2, 4, 6, 7 electrons. 7 electrons when you count all of the electrons around the sulfur. Now we're going to look at the periodic table. How many electrons does sulfur want to have? It wants to have 6. So here we go. Sulfur only wants 6 electrons, but it has 7. So does it have an extra electron, or is it missing an electron? It has an extra, right? It's got 7 when it only wants 6. So remember that little cartoon I showed you. If you have an extra negative electron, what charge are you going to have? You're going to have a -1 charge. So this sulfur has a -1 charge because it has an extra negative electron. Let's try another one. Let's look at this nitrogen atom. So the nitrogen has some bonds. So we're going to show the electrons in each bond around the nitrogen. And then remember, you're going to karate chop those bonds in half to look only at the electrons around the nitrogen atom. When you count the electrons, we'll find that it has 5 electrons. So now we can go ahead and look at the periodic table and find nitrogen. Nitrogen wants to have 5 electrons. And right now, nitrogen has 5 electrons. So we can conclude that the nitrogen atom is neutral. It has 5 electrons and it wants to have 5 electrons. Let's try another one. Let's look at this oxygen atom right here. The oxygen has a bond, so we're going to show the 2 electrons in the bond. Karate chop the bond in half. Let's count how many electrons are around the oxygen. Oxygen here has 7 electrons. We're going to look at the periodic table to see how many electrons oxygen wants to have. Oxygen wants to have 6, but it has 7 electrons right now. So it wants to have 6, but it has 7. Meaning it has an extra negative electron. So what charge do you think the oxygen is going to have if it has an extra negative electron? Exactly, it's going to have a -1 charge. Now let's look at another atom. let's have a look at this nitrogen atom. We've got some bonds. So we're going to show the electrons in these single bonds here. And then we're going to karate chop, karate chop, karate chop, and karate chop. And now let's count how many electrons are specifically around the nitrogen atom. If you only look around the nitrogen atom, you've got 4 electrons, right? So we're going to find nitrogen this time on the periodic table. Nitrogen wants to have 5 electrons, but here he has 4 electrons. So what does that mean? He's missing a negative electron. He wants 5, but he only has 4. So he's going to be deficient. He's going to have a +1 charge because he is missing a negative electron. So remember, if nitrogen has all 5 electrons that he needs, like in this case, he's going to be neutral. But if he's missing an electron, he's going to be positive. When you have an extra electron, you're going to be negative. So go ahead and pause the video so that you can try this example right here. Try to go ahead and calculate the formal charge around that oxygen atom, and then press play so that we can look over it together. Okay, so for the oxygen, we're going to go ahead and show the electrons in each bond, and then we're going to karate chop our bonds. Let's count how many electrons do we have around the oxygen. We have 2, 4, 5 electrons around the oxygen atom. So then we're going to go to the periodic table and we're going to find oxygen. Oxygen wants to have 6 electrons, but right now it only has 5 electrons. So the oxygen atom is missing a negative electron, meaning it is deficient. So it's going to have a +1 charge. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and also hit the notification bell so that you can stay up to date when I upload new videos.